Hi everybody and welcome back. Today we're talking about Hankai Outboards and why I think they're complete pieces of junk, and I think you should just buy just about anything else besides these things. This video is specifically going to be about this little 3.5 two-stroke motor. I don't have any experience with their larger ones. Those may be okay, but I think some of my points about this thing are still going to apply to those larger motors. I was given this little 3.5 a couple of years ago, and I have run it here and there since I got it, and this thing has been nothing but issues in the short amount of time I've ran it. First of all, I don't know if you can notice, there's a slight sheen in the water, and that is because this little rubber grommet in the tank right here is leaking. And this motor's had nothing but non-ethanol gas through it, and in a couple of years, it to be leaking gas everywhere, that's just unacceptable in my opinion. Not only that, these starters are just known to be junk. I mean, if you just pull on it, I mean, the thing just feels like it's gonna snap in half. I mean, it just complete junk, and the motor don't even stay down while you're pulling on it, so you gotta have two hands on it. And you may be wondering why it looks like this thing's about to just break in half. That's because the genius engineers over at Hankai thought it'd be a great idea to have your cowling bolted together with 6 to 8 little screws and bolts. So every time this thing breaks down on you on the water and you gotta try and fix it, well, guess where half of your bolts end up going? In the water. So guess what? This thing is missing just about half the hardware that holds it together. And you see this snap, I mean, this has never been dropped or anything. It just snapped putting it back together. I mean, that is just crazy quality. Just to prove my point, let's see how many bolts you have to take out to get your cowling off. What's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just to get the cowling off. That's ridiculous. Now I'm about to crank this thing up, and you're about to see just how quiet and smooth this baby runs. I mean, just like a top. So I'm gonna put the phone down and I'm gonna start her up, and I'll get recording for y'all, because like I showed earlier, this thing requires 2 hands to be able to start. Okay, so it's starting in about 3 pulls, which really isn't too bad as long as it don't shut off on me, because it loves to shut off at idle. Now, I'm not going to blame that on the motor because it's satellite, so I'm sure that Chinese carburetor is amazing. So as you can see, it's just so quiet and runs so smooth. I'm going to give it a little bit of gas. And that's wide open throttle. Okay, so I brought her back down the idle and she died, but let's see after our quick little 2 or 3 minute run just how hot this thing might have gotten. I mean, I'm sure it cooled amazingly. 3 minutes and you pour water, it's steaming. That's a sign it's overheating. It shouldn't boil off like that. And you may be thinking, well, just go buy a new impeller and put it in it, but the problem with that is trying to get aftermarket parts for these things is just about impossible. I mean, these things are really made to just be thrown away. I mean, I've looked, and trying to find an impeller that I know is going to fit one of these things is a chore. And if it's a chore just to find an impeller, imagine how hard it is to find something a little more complicated, like a carburetor. You know, it's just, or that fuel grommet that's leaking. I mean, it's just, I can't recommend one of these motors to anybody. I mean, it's just, you know, even if it runs good for you at first, what good is it if a year or 2 down the line the impeller breaks and you can't get a new one? Or if a grommet starts leaking and you can't get a new grommet to fix your fuel leak. Some more features of this crappy design are the fact that it doesn't not have neutral. This thing has a what they call a centrifugal clutch. It's kind of like what a weed eater uses. So at idle it's like neutral, but it's not in neutral. Then we give it a little bit of gas, it'll kick itself in the quote-unquote gear. Well, the problem is that clutch is known to be quite junk, and then not a lot of use, tends to break. And in order to fix that, you have to pull the power head, which for somebody like me is really not that big of a deal, but I can't imagine the average Joe wants to go through pulling the power head on one of these things just to fix the clutch. And not only that, I mean, and what are the odds you can even find like a base gasket for the power head? If I can't even find an impeller, I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's just, you can't get parts for these things. And how the engineers designed the cooling system on this thing is very unique, to say the least. It's a hybrid between an air and water-cooled design. So at idle, when that clutch is not spinning, your water pump isn't spinning either, meaning you're getting no coolant water through this thing, and it's primarily air-cooled. Well, the problem I have with that is, y'all saw how hot it got when it was running at wide open throttle. If it's getting hot enough at wide open throttle where water's instantly boiling off the top of the engine, how hot do you think this thing's gonna get at idle when there's no water going through it? Again, I think if you let this thing idle for anything more than probably about 5 minutes, I'd have to imagine this engine's probably gonna grenade itself. And yet another design flaw with this thing is the fact it has no rubber motor mounts, which means, especially if you add in the fact it's a 1-cylinder engine, which is just not very balanced to begin with, this thing vibrates a ton and makes so much racket when this thing's up running at wide open throttle. I mean, it's crazy. And hey, I think most of the time the reason people buy these little Hankai motors is because they want something new and reliable, but also for a low price. And you know, I really can't blame anybody for that, because new outboard prices have gotten insane, and you know, not everybody wants to work on an old beater Evinrude and fix it up. But I think for all the reasons I've shown, I don't think this motor is very reliable to begin with. And I mean, the problem is when something breaks on it, you're not gonna be able to get the parts to fix it. I honestly think if you took the $200 or $300 you would have spent on this little Hankai and bought a little 6-horse Evinrude or a little 2.5-horse Johnson and just did a little bit of work to fix it up, I think you'd end up with a much quieter, much more reliable motor than something like this. And then inevitably, when something probably goes wrong on it, you're able to get parts to fix the thing. But hey, if you're someone who went and bought one of these little motors and it serves your purpose and makes you happy, more power to you. I just made this video because I think a lot of these people buy these motors not knowing what they're getting into. And I think they can make a much better use of their money buying a good used motor than buying one of these. So yeah, I went to go crank the motor up to go back to the ramp, and look what happened. Too bad I didn't bring a whole Craftsman socket set with me so I could just get this cowling off and this starter off. Piece of freaking junk. Exactly my point. If this were a little Evinrude or Johnson, I could just take this rope, wrap it around the flywheel, and pull it and start it. But since I don't have a freaking master mechanic tool set with me, I'm getting towed back. Yep, just living that Hankai life. Man, I love Hankai outboards. Nothing like stuck and bailing your boat out.